The Green River, a ribbon of water winding through the Pacific Northwest, held a dark secret. Its serene waters and lush surroundings masked a sinister reality that would soon unravel, shocking the nation and forever changing the lives of those who lived nearby. Feel the tension as the story unfolds, drawing you into the chilling mystery that lies beneath the surface. Beneath its placid surface, a nightmare lurked, preying on the vulnerable and leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. The river, once a symbol of tranquility, became a silent witness to unspeakable horrors as the bodies of young women began to emerge from its depths. This wasn't just a story about murder. It was about the hunt for a ghost, a phantom who haunted the dreams of a city and left law enforcement grasping at straws. The killer's elusiveness and the brutality of his crimes created an atmosphere of dread that permeated the community. The year was 1982, and the Green River Killer was about to etch his name in the annals of criminal history. His reign of terror would span decades, leaving an indelible mark on the collective psyche of the region. As bodies surfaced, each bearing the killer's gruesome signature, fear gripped Seattle and its surrounding areas. The victims, often young women who had been living on the margins of society, were found in various states of decomposition, their lives brutally cut short. Panic set in as the body count rose, and the authorities found themselves locked in a desperate race against time. The pressure to catch the killer mounted, and the community's trust in law enforcement began to waver as the months turned into years without an arrest. They knew the killer was out there, but he seemed to melt away into the shadows after every kill, leaving behind little more than a chilling calling card, the eerie silence of the forest and the victims he left behind. The sense of helplessness was palpable as each new discovery brought more questions than answers. The Green River Killer case wasn't just about catching a criminal, it was about understanding the depths of human depravity. The investigators, many of whom had never encountered such a relentless and calculating adversary, were forced to delve into the darkest corners of the human psyche. It forced investigators to confront the darkest corners of the human psyche and pushed the boundaries of forensic science. The case became a catalyst for advancements in criminal profiling and forensic techniques, as experts sought to piece together the puzzle of the killer's identity. This is the story of how a city terrorized by an unseen predator fought back, utilizing cutting-edge techniques and unwavering determination to bring a monster to justice. The relentless pursuit of the Green River Killer would eventually lead to breakthroughs that not only solved the case but also changed the landscape of criminal investigations forever. The tireless efforts of law enforcement, combined with the resilience of the community, ultimately brought an end to the reign of terror, providing a measure of closure to the families of the victims and restoring a sense of safety to the region. Most of the victims were young women, many of them runaways or involved in sex work, their lives cut short before they had a chance to bloom. These women, often overlooked by society, had dreams and aspirations, but their paths led them into the shadows where the Green River Killer lurked. Their stories, though tragically brief, are a stark reminder of the vulnerability that comes with living on the margins. The city of Seattle and its surrounding areas were gripped by fear. The once vibrant and bustling streets now carried an air of unease. The community, known for its scenic beauty and progressive values, found itself in the throes of a nightmare that seemed to have no end in sight. The fear was palpable, affecting everyone from the heart of the city to its quiet suburbs. Parents kept their daughters close, the once familiar streets now seeming fraught with unseen danger. The sense of security that families once felt was shattered, replaced by a constant state of vigilance. Every stranger was a potential threat, every shadow a possible hiding place for the killer. The community's trust was eroded, and the impact was felt deeply in the daily lives of its residents. The Green River Killer had cast a long shadow, and everyone felt its chilling touch. The fear of the unknown, the dread of what might happen next, hung over the city like a dark cloud. Nighttime, once a time for rest and relaxation, became a period of heightened anxiety. The killer's presence was a constant, oppressive force that seemed to infiltrate every aspect of life. The police, under immense pressure to find the killer, found themselves facing a daunting task. The complexity of the case, combined with the sheer number of victims, made the investigation a Herculean effort. Resources were stretched thin, and the emotional toll on the officers was immense. They were not just fighting a criminal, they were battling the fear and despair that had taken hold of their community. The victims, often marginalized and living on the fringes of society, left behind few clues. Their lives, already marked by hardship and struggle, ended in a way that seemed to erase their existence. The killer's choice of victims was no accident. He preyed on those who were least likely to be missed, those whose disappearances would not immediately raise alarms. This made the task of finding him even more difficult. The killer seemed to know how to choose his victims and dispose of their bodies in a way that made it nearly impossible to track him down. His methods were calculated, his actions deliberate. He left behind a trail of sorrow and confusion, but very little in the way of evidence. The investigators, despite their best efforts, often found themselves at a loss, chasing leads that led nowhere. As the body count continued to rise, the Green River Killer case became a macabre obsession for the media and the public alike. News outlets competed for the latest scoop, each headline more sensational than the last. The public, hungry for information, devoured every detail, every theory. The case became a grim spectacle, a dark chapter in the city's history that everyone seemed unable to look away from. Every new discovery dominated the headlines, fueling the growing sense of dread. Each piece of news, whether it was a new victim or a potential lead, added to the collective anxiety. The community's hope for resolution was constantly dashed by the reality of the ongoing threat. The killer's ability to evade capture only heightened the sense of helplessness and fear. Theories abounded, rumors spread like wildfire, and the pressure on law enforcement intensified with each passing day. Everyone had an opinion, a theory, a piece of gossip that they believed could crack the case. The speculation, while sometimes helpful, often muddied the waters, making it harder for the police to sift through the noise and find the truth. The community's desperation for answers was both a driving force and a complicating factor in the investigation. The city held its breath, waiting for answers, praying for the nightmare to end. The anticipation was a constant undercurrent, a tension that never seemed to dissipate. Every day without an arrest was another day of fear, another day of wondering who might be next. The collective hope for justice was a fragile thing, easily shattered by the harsh reality of the ongoing threat. The city, once a beacon of progress and safety, now found itself in the grip of a terror that seemed unending. The profilers, studying the crime scenes and the scant physical evidence, began to whisper their theories. They spoke of a killer who was organized, methodical, and meticulous in his crimes. Someone who likely had a solid understanding of the local geography. This was no random act of violence. This was a predator who stalked his prey, choosing his victims carefully and disposing of their bodies with a chilling efficiency that spoke of experience and a disturbing lack of remorse. Profiler. The early profiles suggested the killer was likely white, male, and possessed a high degree of intelligence. He might have had a history of violence against women, perhaps even a criminal record. The profilers theorized he might be employed in a job that provided him with access to vehicles and knowledge of the area's backroads, allowing him to move his victims undetected. This early profile, though far from complete, provided a starting point, a flicker of light in the overwhelming darkness. One of the most chilling aspects of the case was the killer's apparent familiarity with his victims. He seemed to know intimate details about their lives, their routines, and even their fears. This knowledge wasn't just coincidental, it was meticulously gathered, indicating a level of premeditation that was both terrifying and impressive. He often engaged them in conversation, sometimes even gaining their trust before taking their lives. These interactions were not random, they were carefully orchestrated. The killer had an uncanny ability to blend into his surroundings, making him appear as just another face in the crowd. This made it incredibly difficult for the victims to sense any danger. This suggested a certain level of charisma, a manipulative charm that allowed him to disarm his victims and lure them into a false sense of security. He used this charm as a weapon, a tool to break down their defenses. The charm bracelet he often wore was not just an accessory, it was a symbol of his ability to manipulate and control, Profiler, the way he disposed of the bodies, often posing them in clusters or concealing them with care, hinted at a possible attempt to personalize his crimes, to establish a macabre connection with his victims, even in death. This method of disposal was not just about hiding the evidence, it was a statement, a twisted form of communication with the world. The profilers theorized that the killer might be driven by a need for power and control, fueled by a deep-seated rage towards women, possibly stemming from a troubled past. This rage was evident in the brutality of the crimes, the sheer violence inflicted upon the victims. It was as if each act of violence was a release, a way for the killer to exert his dominance and control. His meticulous planning and the methodical nature of his crime suggested a high degree of organization, a stark contrast to the chaos he inflicted on the lives of his victims and their families. Every detail was thought out, from the initial contact to the final act. This level of planning indicated a mind that was both highly intelligent and deeply disturbed. Each new piece of the puzzle, however gruesome, helped to paint a clearer picture of the man behind the mask. The investigators worked tirelessly, sifting through mountains of evidence, each clue bringing them one step closer to understanding the killer's psyche. The profile they constructed was not just a tool for catching the killer, it was a window into the dark recesses of a mind capable of such heinous acts. The team of investigators often gathered in dimly lit rooms, discussing the case late into the night. They pored over maps, marked with the locations of each crime, trying to find a pattern, a connection that would lead them to the killer. The tension in these rooms was palpable, each investigator driven by the need to stop the killer before he could strike again. The detectives' notebooks were filled with scribbled notes and sketches, each page a testament to the relentless pursuit of justice. These notes were more than just observations. They were pieces of a larger puzzle, each one bringing them closer to the truth. The sketches often depicted the killer's possible appearance based on witness descriptions and forensic evidence. In the lab, the forensic team worked meticulously, analyzing DNA samples and other physical evidence. Every piece of evidence was scrutinized, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. The investigators knew that even the tiniest clue could be the key to unlocking the mystery of the killer's identity. Then, one day, a breakthrough came, a phone call that changed everything. The detective's face lit up with a mix of surprise and hope. They had found a new lead, a piece of evidence that could finally bring them face to face with the killer. The chase was far from over, but for the first time they felt a glimmer of hope that justice would be served.